Our next presenter is Aureya Magdalen. She serves as a guide for people in the process of waking up. She has recently started Magdalen University, an energy work and psychic reading school for practitioners. Today, Aureya will offer tools, understanding, and humor in a reflection on how relationship chords function in our lives as we move toward unity consciousness. Her Soul Talks is called Relationship Chord Dynamics. Please welcome Aureya Magdalen.
Well, I thought about what I would like to share with you, and the way that relationship chords work in our lives is something that we all have experience with every day, but sometimes we don't understand some of the actual ways they work. And I wanted to share what I know about that with you. And also I'm going to lead you to look at a couple things for yourself, because I always like to teach in an experiential way. So first, I'm going to say some things that you may already know about what is a relationship chord. So it's basically a cord of light that shares information between one person and another. And it's basically a learning vehicle. And one person is the giver, and the other person is the receiver. So if you're right-hand dominant, it usually comes out of one of your chakras on the right side if you're the giver. And if you're the giver, you're usually, in a way, kind of brushing up on something that you just learned. And so you want to give that, so you're like, oh yeah, I got this. And if you're a receiver, the way I like to think of it is you're trying to remember what it might feel like. You're trying to jog your memory of what it might feel like to be whole in that center. And to really remember your own tools and your own talents there. And so the truth, as we all know, is that there's no such thing as lack or not being whole. But we have a great illusion going on down here. And so this is sort of the way that we remind ourselves. And we are coming to a time on the planet, and I'm imagining all of you are in it, where we're shifting from the personality or ego system that uses those chords to really being source direct and teaching ourselves things more on the inner, trying to look at things for ourselves as opposed to projecting out our strength, right, on somebody else. And so when the chords are, well, at the very beginning, it's like a full-time sound that's going through. And then when you've pretty much got it, it goes intermittent, meaning it's sometimes on and it's sometimes off. And when it's in the intermittent stage, the chord that's maybe been on your dominant side as a giver or on your non-dominant side as a receiver goes into the back of that chakra, which is interesting, isn't it? A lot of the things that are sort of from the past end up behind the energy centers. So, in the 80s and 90s, a lot of us were in the idea that you could just cut a cord. There was a lot of cord cutting ceremonies, right? And, bless us for our lack of understanding at that time. But basically, a cord is an agreement, and it's a sacred agreement. And it's just like any ways that we love each other. It's intentional from our soul, and it's important. And so unless you work with that agreement and what you're actually trying to learn by having that chord, it's not going to go away. You have to really ask yourself, what are you learning? And how can you learn that and integrate that lesson before your side will be done? And an interesting thing about chords is that about the time that you're done, the other person is also done. Because the agreement at the higher level has a time agreement. And sometimes these chords, you know, they can last an hour. And sometimes, truly, they can last a lifetime. And so I wanted to say again, we're going to a time of no chords. A lot of people ask me, well, can you have a relationship without chords? And I want to say emphatically, yes. And I have relationships with many people who I used to have chords with. And so I want to say kind of the energetic experience of what happens when you set up a chord with somebody. And you'll all recognize this with your good friends and your lovers and your children and your parents and anyone that's you're sharing deep lessons with. So when the chord first sets up, let's say in a friendship or lovership, it's that wonderful feeling of like, kind of I'm getting to be more of myself, and I'm getting to be more whole, and my talents are coming out, and I'm being seen, and I haven't gotten to experience these parts of myself so fully. And unfortunately, we usually project that wonderfulness out onto that person. You ever have the feeling is when they start to go away, it's like, oh, I'll never feel that again. Right? And it's really us, you know, it's the divinity in each of our energy centers that we're really remembering during that relationship. So you have that wonderful feeling of wholeness that usually lasts 3 months, 6 months, as we can tell in our relationships. Maybe a year if you're really lucky. And then what happens is that, so let's say my person wasn't so good at knowing what's happening with them emotionally. And they might send a receiving chord to my throat chakra saying to me, will you tone for me? No. Will you talk to me about my emotions? So they'd be sending me the vibrations of their emotion, and I'd be saying, maybe you feel sad. Imagine you might feel sad because of blah, blah, blah. And so when they have had enough of me telling them what they might be feeling, they really want to do it themselves. We all just want to do it all by ourselves, right? So then there's that part where they start to take the chord back, and I'm still like, wait, don't you need me? Because a lot of our sense of being loved is really about these chords. It's like, oh, I felt so whole with you, and you need me, and I need you, and isn't that wonderful? So anyway, when they start to not need you, and it starts to go into the intermittent phase, then we have all those doubts that sound something like, wait a minute, did they ever really like me as much as I liked them? Wait a minute, did I really love them in the first place? And did they just need me? And they didn't really like me? You know, all that kind of that we go through. And if you get good at this, and you start to really know that shaky place, it's really a great thing to have more distance during that period. Because that person is really wanting to do it for themselves, and you need to basically, let's say I was learning how to describe emotion, so that's why I wanted to be a giver of that. Well, really, I need to go back to describing my own emotion, right? I need to do for me what I'm trying to learn to do for them and vice versa. Okay, so I'm going to go now through whatever, maybe the first 2 or 3 chakras and lead you just to have a little gander at who you might have chords with in those areas, okay? So in the first chakra, down at the pubic bone to tailbone area, this is our area of identity. It's our area of grounding our channel into the earth. It's our energy of vitality. It's kind of a sparking energy of aliveness and health if you're receiving that earth energy. And so just take a moment to go inside, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Who helps me feel safe in my body? Who helps me feel like I have a place in the world? Who helps me define who I am? So, breathe into that. Those are probably people you've shared a root chakra cord with, possibly giving, possibly receiving. Send a blessing to that learning. And now really bring your own light to your first chakra. And, we're all gradually going towards wholeness. So get an image of grounding yourself, feeling safe for yourself, feeling like you have a place in the world. Yeah, your potential. We're trying to work, all of us, towards our full potential. Okay, now we're going up to the belly, the second chakra, which is about our sensual nature, our water, our flow, our reflectability, being able to feel the ocean or another person, and our emotion, our ability to feel. And so, take a moment inside again. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Who do I like to touch, feel cozy with, or enjoy eating with? Who do I laugh the hardest with? Who do I enjoy traveling and going to new places and feeling new environments with? Good. So, just feel into those relationships. You've been giving or receiving most likely in the second chakra. It's been sweet. Bless those and return your energy back to yourself. And feeling your potential to flow, your potential to center yourself, to self-soothe, to have fun, to be spontaneous. Yeah. Good. So I think I will move now so I don't run out of time on then what do you do about these if you have them. Most people in the past years have tended to imagine they were a victim of these things. And if we let go of that and really go back to the idea of a mutual good, mutual learning, even if it's a difficult learning, we want to complete by feeling into, what we're learning with that person and any fear we have of letting go, and to how do we get over fear? Well, we really acknowledge parts of ourselves that are more whole and more strong. And so if you have a fear, let's say in the second chakra, you have a emotional neediness. We often have, even between relationships, like something called a dangling cord that's just waiting for the next person who's going to be our mommy, daddy. And so we're really trying to pull that mommy, daddy of the universe, right, from the source and from the earth and from our own heart. Yeah. And so we're asking what we're trying to learn. We're asking, what are our best steps towards that? So let's do one of those. So take one of those people that came into your imagination that you feel maybe is the most person that you have shared feeling needy with. And either that you feel like you must have them, or you have a feeling like, oh, if I wasn't with this person, they just wouldn't make it. You know, we all as healer types, we got very good at that, saving other people. So think of that person. Yeah. And feel into the energy of that, you know, that cord, that exchange. And ask yourself, what am I trying to learn? And what's a good first step towards learning that lesson? And what's a strength that I already have that I can pull into this area where I have felt weak or dependent or codependent? What's a strength that I already have inside myself that I can really pull deep in and breathe into and affirm my wholeness? Good. And if you haven't gotten it yet, you might want to say, am I giving or am I receiving? Good. And now ask for an image of yourself in your full potential of this area that you have shared a cord, this aspect of yourself. Get an image of yourself in your full potential. Beautiful. So bringing the feeling of that into your heart, affirming that feeling as the truth, and then sending some of that to whatever chakra you're working with. And be kind, be sweet. Say to yourself, you know, we're working towards this sense of wholeness. Very good. Okay, so a couple great places to integrate when you've gone in and learned something. One is the Sacred Heart. It's a place where we bring in the light that goes into our other chakras. So I can't really touch it, but because of my mic. But here you might want to try putting your dominant, most of us are right hand there. Just imagine that you're receiving and letting that fill up. And that will naturally sparkle out to the rest of you. And you might want to send a little bit of that light to the energy centers that you feel have been a little bit outside yourself. They haven't been quite home. So sending that love and that light. Good. Good. So whenever we bring in light, it hits the dark. Whenever we bring in more light, it hits the structures in our energy system. Not really the dark, but let's just say the contractions. The structures are patterns that are based on fear. And we want to really always hold space for ourselves to feel loving towards those things that we learned, sometimes in adversity. And so with love now, anything that's ready to go, just take a couple clearing breaths. Ah, nice. Ah, very good. Good. So, lastly, I just, I want to thank you so much. And RJ, thank you. And JG, thank you. And just one other little plug, I want to say that I also have a monthly class in Sacramento that's called Psychics in Action. and I teach a little something for 20 minutes, and then we have a lot of fun where everyone, not everyone usually, a few people get to ask something, and then everybody else looks. And I give little teachings of how to look, and so people get a lot of information. It's pretty fun. It's in Sacramento. So good, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.